Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 172. I almost said 72 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emallson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomoly.
Hello, hello.
And this week, we are talking about a bunch of patch 10.2 news. And actually, we're not going to get to cover everything because there is so much of it. So, we are going to be talking about Mistweaver changes. We're going to be talking about tier sets. We have all of the tier sets have had their set bonuses announced. We're going to talk about some of those. We're going to talk about the Monk ones. And
Yeah.
then we are also going to talk about some of the item upgrade changes for next season.
Yep.
They are keeping the overall same system, but they are tweaking it in a number of ways. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into all of that, how was your raid weekend, huh?
It was good. I mean, I think people might forget we also got 10.17 this week.
Right.
So that launched on Tuesday. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that as we talk about the raid. But yeah, no, raid was fine. I think, like I mentioned, we're down to 1 day a week. Regardless of what we do. We did clear everything this week with about, I'd say, an hour left in our raid nights. We're done at about like
Nice.
11,
Nice.
11:15. We normally go till midnight. So yeah, no, it was solid raid night. Got through everything in like 3 hours. I think we can get that done um a little bit quicker. I think we can get down to like almost 2 hours if we're kind of
Nice.
stop messing around on
Going
Sarkar.
for those complete raid speed parses.
Exactly. Well, no, we're not. We're not doing all that. Just to get in and out of there. I think a little bit easier. So,
We actually,
um,
I should add Magmarax as an endpoint for that, so you can get one when doing the skip.
oh yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But no, it's been it was a good raid week. It was easy clear. I mean, nothing too crazy on our end. So, and got to mess around with the new manatee, which is um it seems good, but also seems redundant in the current, like,
Yeah, I mean your tier
just
set's
like with
so
our current two.
powerful.
Yeah, you have that plus Rashok as a trinket and
Yeah,
manatee. It's like I would just hit it every 10 seconds to proc the four piece, and
yeah.
like
Which
that's basically it. So
a note from the PTR: Brashok's mana gain is getting nerfed by 70%, and we're going to talk more when we talk about Mistweaver stuff about the mana
yeah.
changes. But there's a lot of changes to mana economy across all healers. Um,
Yep.
and
Yeah, they're changing our two set too in
yeah,
ten
they're
two.
nerfing the
So
two set. They're nerfing Rashok's mana gain. So we'll see. Yeah, we have a healer that's looking at playing Mistweaver next year, so they've been messing around with it, and they're like, I like Manatee, but it feels underwhelming. Like the mana gain right now feels underwhelming. It's like it the only reason, like on a power level,
oh yeah.
is just like you use it to trigger your set bonus.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean it was fun to mess around with. It was fun to have it back. It's something that, like, I need to now. I'd like set up UI stuff to track it, track stacks, make sure I didn't overcap. So, but yeah, it brings me back to a little bit closer to, like I mentioned, like that WAD and an MOP style of like having to like channel manatee to get mana back. Now we need is a glyph that just lets you like insta drink for like 2 or 3 stacks, and then you're good. So but no, raid. I mean, raid went perfectly fine. Nothing too crazy. Like, it's funny on my monk. I think so. A couple things maybe that we've talked about in the past. I think the augmentation dream is now dead for me, particularly with these changes we'll talk about. So I think I'm gonna stay. The goal is now probably to stay Mistweaver for 10-2.
Exciting.
Um, yeah, very exciting. And then yeah, it's I literally need 2 items from the raid, and it's Rashok's trinket and Neltharian's trinket, and everything else. Like, I just need no other gear. So it's like
Yeah.
I care about 2 bosses at this point. So I've been, unfortunately, only have 4 healers, but I'm trying to sit myself a lot. So, do some other stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
but
three
no, it was
heal
a,
everything. That's
that's what I think. That's actually the play. I think we're gonna start doing that. So
Yeah,
um,
speaking of three healing, we are doing a lot of three healing this week. We three healed Echo Neltharion for the first time. Somehow killed it slower than with four healers, which is exciting.
n- nice,
And
nice.
I mean, some of that is just like you get hard capped on phase two duration. Like
Yeah,
you're just hard limited by how quickly you get the third set of corruptions. Like the boss is pinned, you just gotta wait,
exactly.
and then you gotta kill the last dead. So phase two is like the same duration. Phase one
Hmm.
is like faster. Phase 3 was slower because we had people die,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
more or less how it worked out. But that actually went fairly smoothly. It took us like 30 minutes to get that down, and we spent 2 hours trying to three heal Sarkareth again. I say trying to. We killed it, but it took us
Yeah.
2 hours to get through it. And most of it was actually phase one. We actually had more issues with phase one this week than we did last week. And some of that actually, I think, is that last week we had two darknesses and two rallying cries. And this week we had one darkness and one rallying cry.
Oh
Other than
yeah.
that, everything was the same. Oh, we also had two augmentation evokers last week and only one this week. And I'm not sure how much. Actually, we ended up with two this week because someone disconnected.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like once we actually, like at the end of the night, not end of the night, but like end of our, Reclear of Sarkareth, we stopped wiping in phase one and then killed it in like 4 pulls.
Yeah. That's
And
what I mean. Oh, sorry.
you just get through phase one, and then you just like don't die to bombs and the boss dies, and that's
Yeah.
that's basically it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like one sketchy part in phase three. Like phase two is a joke healing wise. Like there's never a chance you should
Yeah,
die in phase two.
we
And
we
then
have
phase
uh
three.
we have various points in phase two where there's only one healer up because we just have the other healers do bombs because there's nothing else for them to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So in phase three, there's like one sketchy part, which is typically like the group soak of black hole. Like I think it's like the second black hole.
Yeah,
As you're moving back into position for that, it gets a little sketchy. But I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it's that's awesome. Yeah, I think we're gonna actually three. The problem for us is like we have to redo healing cooldowns, and I do healing cooldowns, and I'm not doing them for three healers because I'm lazy. And so somebody else, some other healer, has to probably step up and do that.
if you have
So,
a Holy Paladin, Mistweaver, Resto Druid, not Mistweaver, Holy Paladin, Resto Shaman, there we go, and Resto
yeah,
Druid comp, you can just steal ours.
that's fair. That's fair. We don't have a resto druid, so
Well,
but we have a holy priest, which is basically the same thing.
not
So
exactly. Although for phase one, it's pretty close because you can just put the him in one of the clears and the salve in the other one,
yeah, yeah,
and
and you
and
cover it that
kind
way.
of, kind of be fine.
Yeah, but no, is that's awesome. Getting down the three goes. Yeah, we'll see if we actually end up moving that way. But yeah, that's the to be fair, other than the new manatee changes, I've interacted with nothing new from 10.17.
I
So
pinged on Sarkareth. I was like, I
oh, the
made a
ping system
call.
shoot you.
I
Yeah.
I pinged somewhere with the warning ping, and I was like, melee stack at the warning ping, and nobody, like everybody just like brain lock up because
Ignored it.
it's new. It's new. It's brand new. It took a minute for everybody to realize like what it meant to stack at the
That's
warning.
awesome. That I think so. I will forgot about pings. We did use pings, but typically most of our pings were pinging people who died to avoidable things, and we would just ping their body. And so that's basically how pings went for us. I forgot about that pings are in. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's pings and manatee have been like the two things that I've sort of taken advantage of. I haven't looked at any of the new story stuff, the dream surges. I know there's one in I think Waking Shores, but I've flown over it a couple times for doing the secret stuff. So
Yeah,
um
I
but yeah.
have not done any of the new world content. I did start catching up on some of the campaign quests. I still have 10.0 campaign quests that I haven't done yet.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I was gonna do that and then I got sucked into this secret thing. So
Oh
I have
yeah,
like
I,
I'm
I
all caught
got
up on. Oh, sorry.
I got sucked into Elden Ring, so that's my excuse.
Nice, nice, nice. But no, it was a solid raid week. 10.17 dropped seems fine.
Yep.
But I think we got the biggest news of the week is I think just 10.2 stuff. Actually, hold on. Before we get to 10.2, I need a 30-second classic moment for us.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
we can move on. So if you don't care about classic, you can turn your brain on for 30 seconds. But on the hardcore servers, I don't know if you saw, but there was a guild that cleared Ragnaros,
Yep.
Anixia, and Zul'Gurub on hardcore,
Yep.
losing only one player throughout those entire raids. So
Which is
um, wild,
yeah.
just absolutely wild. So, but yeah, hardcore rating alive and well if you're in this one guild because I think they're the only guild that has killed anything of note.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, uh, remember Ragnaros is a 40 player raid. You need a lot of people that are at or near level 60 in order to
Oh
do
yeah.
that raid.
I would say on hardcore you want everybody at level 60. Just from an individual perspective, like I wouldn't go in there lower than 60 just for the fear of dying to like
I
taking
actually
too
am
much damage.
curious. So, like, we should be able to find it because it should be the only Ragnaros kill on Defias Pillager, right?
Yeah.
Let's go
Yeah.
see. Let's go see Defias Pillager. Uh oh, I didn't fix the browser thing. Crap.
Oh
Whoops.
no. Um
Yep, there's
what
it.
was
There
I
it
gonna say?
is.
Nice.
The
Yeah.
one kill.
Yeah. Yeah. So they killed it and then but yeah, so hardcore rating alive and well in terms of that. So but cool. I think then all right, classic moment over. Lasts a little bit longer than 30 seconds,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so 10-2 dropped this week. And I think we were like I think like you
PTR,
mentioned
PTR.
sort of in the oh sorry, 10-2 PTR dropped. Yes. We got a bunch of information, a bunch of interviews as always. So like you mentioned, we're gonna focus on just at least three-ish topics. We'll see how long they take. We have a couple extra we can add in towards the end if we need it. But I think we'll focus on these three and then we'll go from there. So the first one up was I think in my mind the class changes. We can talk through that.
Yep,
So um at a high level, there are tons of changes coming in 10.2 across the board for many different classes. Some key things just to keep in mind if you play a class other than Monk, we're going to focus on Monk, but Rogue's getting massive reworks.
yep.
DH is getting massive reworks. The DH in my guild very excited. To be disappointed, I think, more than anything. Um, but yeah, there's going to be some huge overhauls, and then Disc, from a healer point of view, is getting a large number of changes.
Yep.
To
There's
like simplify.
also Druid class tree changes, right? That they
There
announced.
are druid changes. Yeah, there are a lot of druid changes too, actually. Both for all specs actually. Balance, yeah. Feral and Resto. So, um, but yeah, no, it's tons of updates. If you play anything other than Monk, definitely take a look at the notes, jump on PTR. You can mess around with some stuff, but yeah, they're going hard in sort of the balance stuff here, which is fun. So but then specifically for monks, Mistweaver only spec that got changes in the initial PTR. I don't. There weren't a bunch of tank changes in general, right? So like,
No, tanks
yeah,
as a whole did not really get changes. There's like Guardian Druid stuff that's kind of related to the overall Druid changes.
hmm
Um, but for Brewmaster Edwin Walker, the main thing that we got is just you know set bonus.
yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, not a ton of tank changes across the board. Even like DPS wise, unless you're one of those like, hey, we're gonna overhaul your class type specs. Like there were no
Yeah,
like rep paladin changes, which is another like 3 spec, class and things like that. So, but we just got some Mistweaver changes. I'm just gonna quickly read through them, and that way you can sort of we can sort of go over them. But keep in mind, and we'll talk about this after we go through the changes, is there was a post that talked about Blizzard's philosophy towards healing going into this patch. I think it's important to also cover off. So, a couple of quick changes. They are increasing Life Cocoon's healing by 33%. Always good, more Life Cocoon healing. They're increasing Soothing Mist healing. Cool. They're
soothing mist
increasing.
heals.
It's a conduit to clouded focus in my mind. I don't care if it does healing.
It's the thing you do to spam Vivify.
Exactly, exactly. Enveloping mist healing is increased. Believe that's both the both or the hot, of course, and then it would increase with the initial heal if you're using it with Thunder Focus Tea. Misty Peaks, which is the talent that allows Renewing Mist to duplicate, was actually reduced. So it's a 2 point talent. It went from 5 and 10% to 2.5 and 5%, so cut in half at
That's
max
pretty
level.
big.
Yeah, it's I mean, it will be. Yeah, we'll talk about how this sort of looks. Enveloping breath, which is whenever you have a celestial out and you cast enveloping mist, it'll put enveloping breath on previously up to 6 targets. Now it's just 5 additional targets, so you drop 1 target. Um, invigorating mist, which is the cleave heal from Vivify. So Vivify will heal its main target plus any targets with renewing mist. Had its healing increased by 25%, but now does reduced healing beyond 5 targets. So sort of
Mm,
lowering our sort of raid AoE healing a bit. Burst of life healing increased by 100%. That, of course, is the Life Cocoon talent, where Life Cocoon either ends or is broken, and it'll heal around where that Life Cocoon target was.
right.
Vivify direct healing increased by 30%. So a lot of, again, if you're not noticing the theme here as we go through these, lots of direct heal or single target healing increases and AoE healing decreases in terms of power. So Clouded Focus had its reduction reduced. So it was 20% additional healing and 20% reduced mana cost. It is now 15% per stack. A little bit of a nerf there. We saw Ancient Teachings get a range increase from 30 to 40 yards, which we literally been yelling about for years. It now is like, now
About
all we need is
time.
Essence Font. Yeah, to be either. I mean, Essence Font needs to be killed off, but yeah,
If
if
they're
it's
not
still
going
gonna
to
be
do that,
around,
they can at least make the range consistent.
the same as everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ancient Concordance, which is one of the upgrades to Feline Stomp, now only costs a single point, so we get an extra point now in our top tier. And then, like we mentioned
Jealous,
at the start of the
honestly.
show, yeah, Aberrus, so our 2-set bonus in the current raid is changed. No longer does mana return. Now it just increases the healing of Renewing Mist, Soothing Mist, and Enveloping Mist by 12%. So get rid of the mana refund or mana, yeah, the
Yeah.
mana resource gain.
So,
Um,
also a quick note, if you look at the data mine changes, you will see a singular change for Brewmaster and Windwalker, and that is basically they changed our auras, our spec auras for Vivify to compensate for the buff to Vivify for Mistweaver. So Windwalker and Brewmaster don't have any change to Vivify. It's just like there's a tweak to our spec aura so that
mhm,
the buff that Mistweaver got doesn't also buff Brewmaster and then Windwalker.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, so lots and lots and lots of Mistweaver changes, we'll say. And um, what this comes with the fact, and if you look at some of the other healing changes too, you'll see a very similar trend of general nerfs to AoE healing and general buffs to single target healing is sort of what we're looking at in this first pass. And so accompanying this, there was changes like that to paladins, Resto Druid, Disc Priest, of course, got a massive rework and some changes to Holy Priest and stuff like that. Blizzard put out a blog or a blue post to talk about the healing changes. And so basically what they said is sort of in a nutshell is they are trying to increase general single target healing to try and move health bars as best they can, while also reducing the overall throughput to your group healing spells. With sort of like the focus on essentially, making it so your AoE healing is less effective and you're more focused on sort of healing individual targets, right? Which is exactly what we talked about, I think, when we went through like why healing is unfun today
Yeah.
in the current raid meta, is that like there is too much power in healers. So to compensate for that, Blizzard base has to make things kill you in a GCD, right? You have literally a GCT to make a decision as a healer, and you better make the right one or someone dies, right? And
Or
like,
or the other way that it can happen is like on Sarkareth, the swirlies, the fire swirlies in phase one, they do like half your health. And if you're in the raid cooldowns and get hit by one, it just like barely matters. Like you can get hit by
right.
two and just instantly die, and there's nothing anybody can really do about that. Like that's literally your whole health bar. You're just
Mhm.
dead. But if you get hit by one and you've got, salve and a flourish going, it just
You're,
doesn't matter.
you're topped,
You're
yeah.
gonna be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Or you get hit right before you have raid damage and someone's already ramping or going into one of their cooldowns. So yeah, so that's sort of the other thing. They're also taking a look at the raid cooldowns themselves, which is basically hitting on the point you just said, which is like if you have barrier up, like you can feel you're basically invulnerable, right? To most raid damage. Unavoidable raid damage at least.
Yeah.
And so like this is just I think the culmination of what we've talked about, what a couple of people have talked about in like, mid 10.1, which was Like healer power is basically escalated to the point of like, people you're either invulnerable because you have a cooldown, or like to actually like make it dangerous to take damage, or actually make damage dangerous in an instance or in an encounter. It has to basically do 75% of your health bar,
Yeah.
which means like you have, as a player, zero room for any sort of mistake, right? You can't take unavoidable damage,
Yeah.
you can't take avoidable damage. And then secondarily, from a healer point of view, if someone doesn't, like in my case, if someone doesn't have renewing mist on them, I have to make sure I know that and I heal that person or they die, like as I'm
Yeah.
ramping, right? And so
And
that's sort of
yeah,
the issue.
the other piece of this is like we were talking a couple weeks ago about how there's kind of a lack of single target triage healing. And
Yep.
that also feels bad. Like it's not just all these other things, but also someone gets hit by something, and even if you had time to heal them, it's just extremely inefficient to do so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're hoping that they're like in a druid's mushroom thing, like, they're
Yeah,
like they have renewing mist on them. Maybe they get like a prayer of mending that bounces to them, right? Like you're hoping that like the healing that you don't directly control hits them. And even if it doesn't, to your point, like you can even like as a Mistweaver, you can even target someone and try and heal them, but your Vivify main healing doesn't do enough to top them off. You need like
right.
3 casts of it, and then at
Yeah,
that point they're dead. Like they're
yeah,
just dead to maybe other
yeah. Or
damage.
you've
So
sacrificed other people in the raid in order to heal them.
yeah, exactly. So all of this, Blizzard is sort of trying to basically, I think, bring back that sort of idea of triage healing. Lessen the overall reliance on cooldowns, and like basically lessen general healer like AOE, or non-targeted healing across the board. So we'll see how they do this, because we know that from the patch notes and the data mined, we know that they're doing the changes on the healing side, so the player side, we'll say. We'll have to see what that equates to on like the damage side from the encounters we're gonna do.
Yeah,
Because if
I
the damage stays consistent, then I mean healing's gonna suck.
yeah,
Because
I do wonder if this means we're going to see more um kind of randomly targeted single target unavoidable damage that demands single target triage healing. Like I hesitate to bring up pelters from Neltharion's lair because I mean pelters are dumb. But
yeah.
pelters are part of the reason that pelters are bad is that they pelt every like half second, and the infinite
Mhm.
scaling means that you reach the point that like two of them target the same person, half a second later they're dead, and there's just nothing you can do about it other than like have more HP or effective HP, with DRs or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but there are like you can they could put that kind of like randomly targeted single target things. Like we have some of that, things like Volcanic Heart is kind of like
Mhm.
that, where it's like it kind of crushes those people. It will kill them if they don't get healing, but right now AoE healing is enough that you don't really need to single target triage them. They will live
Right.
with just AoE throughput, as long as they
Yeah.
have renewing mists or life blooms or whatever hots.
Yeah. Unless they take a hard tick as the AoE goes out, and then they just get global.
Right. Yes.
Which is like the other problem, like with that. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we'll see exactly how this plays out. I think we need to see the other we need to see the other side of this coin, which is what does the damage profiles look like in some of these encounters. The other thing that Blizzard said in here, which like at least on Twitter, like some of the Twitter people that I follow caused a couple of fun interactions, which was Blizzard made the statement that they wanted mana to matter more to healers. And people were like, I feel like some people are upset about that, which is very weird to me because, like, as a healer, like, you basically have, like, in my mind, like, you have two things you juggle throughout any fight, and it should be two things. So right now, I think it's only one thing, but it's the spell you're casting in that moment. So, like, reacting to the damage or setting up for damage, right? Getting ready, like, making sure you have your quote unquote, I know it's not a full rotation, but like you're setting up for the damage that's about to be taken. You're making the
Right.
right spell choices there. And then secondarily, you have mana as your resource, right? Because that'll influence what you're going to cast, right? Like when Essence Font was a big thing, like, can I afford to cast an Essence Font here? Or do I just put out a Renewing Mist and like sit for like half a second or a second or two? Um, yeah, so people are a little upset about the whole having to have mana be a resource you care about as a healer, which I'm like, Like it's like one of the core things of being a healer to me.
I mean, I think people are also a little bit traumatized by like the Mistweaver mana situation, right? Previously, when it's been like we want mana to matter, there's like one healer that mana doesn't matter. You know, your Holy Paladin or whatever just doesn't care about mana because they broke it again.
Yep.
And then you have like three of them that, you know, they can get by as long as the fights aren't too long or they have time to sleepy pot.
Yeah.
And then like one or two that just can't function. Basically, just can't function like without innervates, and even then, sometimes can't function like Mistweaver has been at some points in the past, where like even with innervates, you run by the end of the fight, unless you get
Yeah.
multiple iterates, which is just a lot.
Yeah, which is, I mean, we'll see how they do the balance there. But it'll be, yeah, I mean, I think these are all interesting changes to healing that they're making sort of mid expansion that we typically don't see, right? Like typically we see an
Yeah,
expansion like long healing methodology or healing like mindset from Blizzard, and we've seen a lot of iteration. Well, not a lot of iteration, but it seems like there's some major changes coming. So generally good thing. Always a fan when the game changes, right? When there's new stuff. I think the current healing meta is, or just not fun. Um, my only concern with a lot of this, which is always now, if they're going to reduce general throughput of healers from an AOE perspective, like my greatest scare is that for any AOE damage on a raid, DRs become that much more powerful. Right. And so the idea of like, if you can reduce, if you're going to do less throughput overall, and so the idea there is you reduce the amount of damage you take incoming to make the raid feel overall safer.
yeah,
So this basically just, in my mind, has the potential to push like AM and barrier and Spirit Link coming back, right? Like
yeah.
all of those sort of cooldowns
They
to the top. So
and like there's the flip side to that where if the ticking damage is just like constant rot, you
mhm,
can't really deal with that with a like 10-second DR cooldown, right? Because
right.
if it's rot damage over 2 minutes that's killing you, that is going to just like kill the whole raid in 10 seconds if you don't heal through it, but it's happening all the time. You can't really deal with that with us like singular DR cooldowns. You could kind of chain
Yeah.
them, but even then with four healers you only get like 40 seconds of it in the best case scenario.
Yeah,
um
we just haven't. I'll say like that. I mean, rot damage is always, I think, the counter to that, but we haven't seen like a fully rot damage fight in a while. Like the closest you'd potentially get is who are the two demons in at the end of Sepulcher? Um, the fight where like they turned into
um
wasp or like
yeah, I know what you
clouds,
mean. Lords of Dread.
Lords of Dread. Like that, I
Yeah,
think is probably the closest you get to like a constant
I
rot
mean,
damage fight.
before they broke Sarkareth was a rot damage fight after phase one.
That's true too. Well, yeah, I never did Sarkrath before the breaking, so
Yeah, I mean, I
um
didn't either, but like you could look at the numbers
that's true. That's fair.
and like they broke the rot damage and it just like eliminated the healing check in phase two and phase three.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point. So yeah, so I mean maybe that would have been where you see it, but yeah, you're right. I mean, rot damage does counteract that, but you're not going to see rot damage on every fight. Like we're
Yeah,
not going to go. I don't think they make the same mistake they did with what was it, Tomb of Sargeras, where like they had the same mechanic in every boss fight, which is just like
yeah,
soaks everywhere. I
yeah.
doubt they'll just do like from a damage profile like rot everywhere.
There's
But
there's also the whole innervate thing. So they're nerfing innervate two, and I want to bring this up because
mhm,
it's like one of the last times in recent memory that one of the best healers has also had mana matter was Castle Nathria Disc Priest,
mhm,
and you just innervated them,
yeah.
and their ramp was free, right? Like they
Oh yeah.
without innervate, they dump like half their mana bar into a ramp, but with innervate, they dump 0% of their mana bar into. I mean, not literally 0% because their ramp took longer than 10 seconds, but um, innervate is for ramp style healing where you're dumping a ton of mana in a short window. Innervate is busted.
Yeah. Yeah, so that reduction is huge. It goes from it goes from 10 to 8 seconds. So you lose basically casts and maybe
It's
two casts
20%
basically.
reduction.
Yeah, which is massive. And then So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that balances. I mean, the funny thing is like I haven't played with an innervate in like a couple of tiers, so like I don't
Yeah.
know what that looks like, but it definitely, I mean, definitely is an impact. And then just speaking of like, I will say like utility impacts like innervate, like I know we don't talk much about PI. PI is getting nerfed
Yep.
coming in, so it's going down to just a 20% haste buff from 25, and it's going from 20 seconds to 15 seconds. So reduced power, reduced duration,
Related
which
to
is
this, they're nerfing Unholy DK Burst.
oh yeah, yeah,
Unholy DK is getting general changes to smooth out their damage profile. Part of that is actually the PI changes. Demo Lock also getting a bunch of changes. Those are like the two biggest bursty specs. Arcane Mage is the other like really big burst spec, but their burst windows are like big one every 90 seconds, little one every 45 seconds.
yeah,
So that's a little bit different than like the 3 minute plus burst window of Demo Lock or Unholy DK. Um, Although ultimately, like they're nerfing those because Augmentation Evoker exists, and Augmentation
yeah,
Evoker is driving those crazy, and they still notably missing from these patch notes are significant changes to Augmentation Evoker.
yeah, yeah. Well, those are coming, I'd say, in the general sense.
I hope so. They also like we haven't talked much about tier sets yet. I just want to throw this out there because we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about other class and spec tier sets.
Yeah,
The current Augmentation Evoker tier set, you want four makes you want four Augmentation Evokers and you want a minute long pull timer
so dumb.
because that allows you to get extra presciences out, put extra Ebon Mites out, and just like I mean, just destroy
Yeah,
everything.
but massive burst up front. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So
So it's we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, because I was talking to our evoker who like dabbles in almost everything. Was like, yeah, I can't wait to sit here for a minute before a fight, like spamming stuff.
there like
I'm literally
there's
gonna be
no way.
AFK.
There's no way.
Yeah,
We switched to 20-second long pull timers this tier to actually last year for some like pre-pull healer setup stuff. And that kind of sucks. Like I missed the 10-second pull timers. A minute pull timer is just not acceptable.
no, we do fit like we went from 12 to 15 when we started running more augmentation this tier, and like even that small change is like
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
Yeah.
um Cool. And I guess the only other final like non-monk just to touch on changes, they are nerfing the cooldown on mass dispel. So it's going from 45 seconds to 2 minutes, which is
That's so crazy to me.
a mass. Yeah, it's a huge change in terms of like for us. So and for like if you think about it, for us, actually use just a single priest to do dispels on say what's the council boss?
Forgotten
Uh
experiments. Yes.
Forgotten
Same.
experiments, yeah. Yeah, so like and it's our shadow priest too. Mana doesn't matter. Like it's fine for
Yeah,
them to do
exactly.
it. So yeah, so that it now we need at least two, right? So like
Yeah.
we have to run a holy priest probably or something like that. 'Cause you're not gonna run two shadow priests
I mean,
in raid.
honestly, what you do is you just don't raid the week that this patch comes out. Like normally we do
Yeah.
dead week raiding, where it's like,
Yeah.
or you just skip that boss that week, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you do, the only other time Mass Dispel is relevant in Aberrus is on Sarkareth, and it's relevant for dispelling the fire dot in phase one. Which if you have a revival, you don't need it for that. And
You
then
revival it.
doing the double dispel in phase three,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your options are either have two priests so that you can do both double dispels,
Yep.
do the go down strat so you don't get the second one, or kill it before the second one. Um, and so what we're doing now is just killing it before the second one, but I mean, honestly, that does make it a lot easier. If you can pull off three healing this fight, just kill it before the second double dispel, it is so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. But yeah, so utility changes across the board, but yeah, specifically for monks, just lots of increases to Mistweaver single target healing, and then decreases to their RAOE healing. And actually, sorry, one more point, which is interesting. So through all the changes I went through, you'll notice one thing is notably missing that is a very strong single target heal for Mistweaver monk, and that is our mastery. Our mastery has
Oh,
not been buffed, which basically means mastery is now worthless, even more worthless than it was. Because I think people were doing some testing and like like just a regular vivify, no buffs on a target does like something like 75% more than like like just a standard amount of mastery you have at this point. So it's like literally mastery becomes absolutely just awful moving forward.
That's hilarious.
Um, yeah, so
I was
all these
actually
changes.
I was talking with someone recently. So Brewmaster's current tier set um, gives you a chance for Brewmaster's dodge stacks, which is their mastery, not to reset when you dodge. Normally, you dodge, it resets the stacks to 0. You start building them up again. Um, and so that combined with the elusive footwork talent, which gives you 2 stacks of elusive brawler whenever
Mhm.
you critically strike with, or it's like 2 extra stacks whenever you critically strike with blackout kick, means that if you crit with blackout kick with just like almost no amount of mastery, you're almost guaranteed to dodge the next hit. Like I think if I crit with blackout kick, I'm like 105% dodge.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
And so you blackout kick ideally every 4 seconds. And that's really, really good on single target because you can just do that and you get over 50% dodge rate with 0% mastery. But then in
Hmm.
AoE, you get hit a lot more, and so you rely a lot more on passive mastery. And there was just this
Gotcha.
conversation about like, okay, well, when we lose this tier set, we're gonna start like, we're not gonna like, blackout kick, guaranteed dodge, not reset our stacks, guaranteed dodge again.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's actually gonna be kind of noticeable, and we mastery maybe becomes more relevant because brewmaster it's not squishy, but you can definitely feel the auto attacks right now. You can
Gotcha.
definitely feel the auto attacks right now.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, but for Mistweaver Mastery, like I guess it's still like it depends again on like the damage profile because technically, Mastery is free healing, free single target healing, but like
Yeah,
it yeah, it just becomes even worse now unless they make some changes to the mastery like coefficient. So we'll see.
yeah.
But I think maybe we can move on a little bit and spend
You
a little
want
bit of time
to
talking
jump into
about.
the tier sets?
Yeah, we can talk about tier sets. We've been talking too much Mistweaver stuff, so maybe we go through the Brewmaster, Windwalker, and then we end on Mistweaver.
I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how good the Windwalker tier set is. I think the answer is not very, but we have to talk about the fact that it's called Ebontoes.
Yeah, I
So
find it
let's talk about the
hilarious.
Windwalker tier set. The 2 set bonus
Yeah.
is melee attacks have a chance to make your next spinning crane kick free. This is the what's it, Dancer Chi Chi? It's like Dancer Chi Chi.
Hmm.
Free spinning crane kicks grant Ebontoes.
Yep.
What a name. Ebontoes increases the damage of your next blackout kick by 100%.
Yep.
It's just the name, the name. Anyway, the 4 set bonus is Ebontoes empowered blackout kicks reduce the cooldown of Fist of Fury, Rising Sun Kick, Strike of the Windlord, and Whirling Dragon Punch by 1 second.
Hmm.
Blackout Kick already does that for Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick, to
Yep.
my
So I guess it's
knowledge.
additional second then.
Yeah. Um, a lot of this rests on how often you get this, but even then, like the combination of like Windwalker Mastery and having to actually spend the free spinning crane kick, like there's multiple steps here. You have to first get a proc from a melee attack, which you
Hmm.
apparently like. Windwalker does not melee very much right now. I think they're using 2-handed weapons like Brewmaster right now, which
Well, it's
really. Oh, go ahead.
it's that I learned something very interesting. It's also that they don't melee during the channel of Fists of Fury.
Yes,
So so like
or the channel of spinning crane kick.
yeah, so there's not a lot. Yeah, to your point, yeah, two-handed weapon plus there's going to be downtime in their ability to even melee,
Yeah,
like cast melee attacks
that's
without that.
actually
So
so.
yeah.
Spinning crane kick is actually extremely bad for your auto attack rate. This comes up for press the advantage for Brewmaster,
Hmm.
which you get a stack every time you auto attack with your main hand weapon.
Hmm.
If you are in the spinning crane kick channel when your next auto attack would happen,
Yep.
it is skipped, not delayed. Skipped. So when your auto attack rate is 1 every 3.6 seconds with a 2-handed weapon, and you skip one because you were spinning crane kicking, it's a pretty big cost. And so
Oh
that's kind
yeah.
of like, I hope that maybe this plus press the advantage, like this Windwalker tier set plus press the advantage, drives some kind of change with spinning crane kick. They can let us auto during it. I think that has PvP ramifications, to be honest. It may be too spaghetti to actually do. And maybe they just like tweak it to be like melee attack or cast spinning crane kick or something. Um,
Right. Yeah.
Triggers it, because otherwise, like, press the advantage again, exact same issue. If you cast spinning crane kick, you are reducing the value of press the advantage. In the case of press the advantage, you literally just don't have other buttons to press, so you just sit there and don't do anything. On
Hmm.
single target, on AoE you still press spinning crane kick, um, but on single target your options are like get a weak core that tracks your swing timer and tells you when it's safe to use spinning crane kick, or just like don't push anything. So with this, like Fist of Fury and Spinning Crane Kick, and it has the downside of the more procs you get, the more Spinning Crane Kick you cast, the more
Yep.
likely you are to skip auto attacks and therefore reduce future proc chances.
Yeah. Which is, I think, I was watching. I think it was Max that was mentioning this. Is that like Windwalker had another set bonus? It might have been Antorus that like had a similar issue where like it procced off melee hits, and it's
Yeah,
just like it's not a class that
yeah.
melees a
At
lot.
least in Antorus, they were dual wielding because that was their artifact.
Yeah.
Like you can technically dual wield now, but I'm pretty sure they use Rashok weapon, same as Brewmaster.
Yeah. 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 So don't know the power of this. It sounds, I mean, if you get around these sort of issues around the way the two set is procking, maybe it ends up being good. But I mean, it just seems like this is just trying to quicken their rotation, right? Like quicken
Yeah,
them being able to cast their higher damage ability, which is cool.
which
But
does mean that Babylonius is automatically going to hate this set bonus.
yeah, exactly. He's getting old, so he can't like hit the buttons as fast. I mean, it's happened. So
Yeah, yeah, old man Babs.
yeah.
Um, so that's the Windwalker set. The Brewmaster set is very different. So the two set bonus for Brewmaster is Breath of Fire deals 20% bonus damage as Shadow Flame and causes you to heal for 50% of all fire damage dealt. Note that is actually whitelisted. It's all fire damage from your Brewmaster spells. So don't go like, I need the Aeronog Ring, I need the Rashok weapon, I need Onyx Analyte. Those don't work
Mhm.
with it. The 4-set bonus, your attacks against targets afflicted by Breath of Fire have a chance to deal 5% extra damage as Shadow Flame. And when you cast Celestial Brew, you also gain a Stagger Absorb equal to the amount of Shadow Flame damage you've dealt, causing damage that would be delayed by Stagger instead to be prevented, which is like it's such a long, like I added words to make it clearer. It's even without me
So many
adding
words.
words, it's pretty long, lengthy as far as set bonuses go. This is currently very janky on the PTR. Uh, Testing, sometimes the stagger absorb appears to not work. Sometimes it works too well. Sometimes it like kind of pauses your stagger and causes it to stop draining entirely.
Nice. Nice.
And not stop damaging you, just like it keeps damaging you, but the number doesn't go down. Um,
Very nice.
so that's all like, there's a lot of like this set bonus is gonna need some actual like implementation work to make it functional. Um,
Hmm.
it's hard to like, this is one of those set bonuses for Brewmaster, for tanks in general, where it's obviously a lot better in AoE than single target. Um, just the fact that like we have Shard Passions, you can put up Shard Passions, Spinning Crane Kick, that's fire damage. Half of all your Spinning Crane Kick damage is done again as fire damage, and then half
Hmm.
of all that fire damage heals you. So it's a pretty good, like you could basically imagine it as leech, right? It's a
Yeah.
very large. It's basically 25% leech on spinning crane kick.
Yeah. Which is solid. Yeah.
And then again 25% leech on blackout kick.
Hmm.
Plus, your breath of fire dot. So like all those things getting you a pretty decent amount of leech. And That's not bad. There's been a long running thing about Leech and how much it should be prioritized for Brewmasters, and generally not worth dropping eye level for in most situations.
Hmm.
However, getting a whole lot of it for free is pretty good. It's very
Okay.
much like the whole high tolerance thing last expansion, right? Where like Brewmaster really wasn't worth picking up haste. Like you didn't put haste on. But getting a lot of it for free, I mean, it's free.
Exactly. Yeah. Free healing is always the best type of healing. So.
But yeah, the big thing to know for this is it is whitelisted, so a lot of the effects that we have right now, like Radshock Weapon, does a huge amount of fire damage when you push it,
Hmm.
and that does not count for the set bonus. So that's not gonna you're not gonna heal off of it. Any Shadow Flame from like Shadow Flame patches is not going to count for your Stagger Absorb, that kind of thing. Assuming that this is actually a real 5% damage chance, you know, doing lots and lots of hits, which Brewmaster is already incentivized to do through effects like Resonant Fists, is just going to be further incentivized to more reliably stack up this Stagger Absorb bonus. Um, we will see where this ends up. The current implementation of the Stagger Absorb thing is just very weird and almost like too cute. Like there's it would be less janky if they just made it like invoke Neozao currently um basically redirects a portion of your stagger to himself.
Gotcha.
So they could just basically do that and be like, it is going to absorb 100% of your stagger dot.
Hmm.
And like they already have a spell for that they can just like base it off of. And it would be I mean, Invoke Neozao is a little bit janky, but it's not that bad. It's not like
Gotcha.
sometimes stagger breaks level of jank.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, set bonus seems fine. I don't know. There's a bunch of numbers tuning that's going to need to be done. Because basically what it reads is your 4 set bonus is a 5% damage buff
Yeah.
with some survivability upside, and then your 2 set bonus is like a 2% damage buff or something from just like 20% bonus damage on Breath of Fire. It's just like 1 or 2%. Uh,
Gotcha.
and then there's going to be an ongoing discussion about Dragonfire Brew, which increases the damage done by Breath of Fire, or Charred
Hmm.
Passions, which causes your Spinning Crane Kick and your Blackout Kick to do fire damage.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, well, which one's better? Yeah,
Yes.
interesting.
So that's going to be an
Interesting.
ongoing discussion. Currently, I think the numbers generally point to Charred Passions just still being better because
Yeah.
in AoE you get your Spinning Crane Kick Leech. In single target, Blackout Kick is just so much damage, so buffing it is just better than buffing Breath of Fire more.
Hmm.
What remains to be seen, and of course this is very early PTR, it's all likely to change.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So that's cool. So it sounds like, I mean, when you say numbers, you think the 2 set needs a little bit of a bump from like 2.5%, or?
I don't really think so. I think
Okay.
that if we end up in the like, you know, 5 to 10% range, I'm
Uh
comfortable
huh.
with that. It doesn't need to be a huge thing,
Yeah.
especially since that's not all the value of the tier set. Like Brewmaster tier set,
Yeah.
this tier is not a huge percentage gain. It's a
Hmm.
like 7% maybe, so it's like in that ballpark. Um,
Gotcha.
and that's I mean I think that's perfectly reasonable for a tier set bonus to give.
Nice. Nice. Well, the mystery reset bonus, absolutely insane. So the uh the way that it reads is basically renewing mist and its jumps apply chi harmony. And chi harmony increases its target's healing taken from you, so you as the Mistweaver, by 50% for 8 seconds. Which means that anytime you cast Renewing Mist or anytime Renewing Mist jumps, basically moves from one target to the next, Chi Harmony is applied to the target you are casting or it jumps to. We did test this. This does also trigger if a Misty Peaks proc occurs, which again, that's when
That's when it
whenever Renewing Mist
duplicates.
jumps,
Oh
it
no.
duplicates. Yeah. Very good. 2 piece. The 4 set bonus reads 15% of all healing you do to targets with Chi Harmony is stored and then dispersed evenly among your allies with Renewing Mist when Chi Harmony fades or is refreshed.
This seems
Which
bonkers.
is really good. So yeah, so I think the four set is extremely solid with the fact that Chi Harmony is just always applied. It's very much like what was it, extend the life type bonus we got with that was at the end of HFC, so end of Warlords. And so yeah, it's the healing that it stores and then distributes is right now just based on like our sort of napkin math on this. This is like a massive amount of additional healing, right?
I mean,
Um,
just the fact that
was the
like
two set
so
is.
currently when you do a Yulon ramp, right, you put out a bunch of enveloping mists and renewing mists, and
Yep.
then you spam vivify.
Yeah. So you'll have between if you get good RNG and good procs. I mean, you should at baseline have between 10 and 12. If you get good RNG with jumps, you might have 16 to. I mean, I've seen 20 a couple of times just for me, and I'm terrible at it, right?
Right.
So yeah, you might be able to blanket the entire raid in this. With the Misty Peaks reduction, right? This comes with basically halves the Misty Peak chance from 10% to 5%.
Hmm.
You might not see as high, but you should be able to consistently get this out on basically half your mythic grade.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
just so you,
then even without the four set, the two set is
it's just
50% increased healing received from you.
yeah, and your ramps are not going to last longer than 8 seconds typically, so it's extremely strong. There are a couple of issues though with it, based on some of the initial testing that the guys did or the folks did, in that not all healing feeds into your to our four set.
Mm.
So there are some spells
Whitelisting.
that don't feed into it, and it's a weird set of spells, we'll say.
Okay.
Like it's things like Essence Font hits don't feed into it. So like the initial bolt healing from
Yeah.
Essence Font doesn't feed into it, which is weird. Like um
It's
uh
what it probably is they whitelisted this, and the whitelist is super incomplete.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Cause like the base spell, like the common spells you expect, like Vivifies and well, the weird thing about Essence Font is the hot works, but the bolt hit doesn't.
Right.
But yeah, there's still some consistencies they have to clean up in terms of what all procs it. But the major ones are there, like Vivifies, Soothing Mist, Enveloping Breath, Enveloping Mist are all there. So, but yeah, it's this set bonus. I mean, it, it is very very powerful and sort of follows I think the trend of a lot of Mistweaver set bonuses in that they start really really good and it's only downhill from here. Um, so we'll see exactly how this gets changed, but I think currently there's no way this goes live in its current state.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
I
and whether
100%
that's
agree.
yeah, I mean, I would say the two set probably stays very fairly consistent. Maybe they do the 50%
I think that
reduce it to
number
like
goes down.
40, 45. But the 15% of all healing you do probably gets down to like 10%. We probably see like 5 to 10% reduction on each of those percentages
Yeah.
for the buff. But
Especially since they feed
it's
into each other, right? The two set bonus increases the amount of healing you do, which increases the value of that 15% of all healing you do.
yeah. Yeah. And then it's dispersed to every renewing mist ally, which if you're doing
Yeah.
this during ramp, you have 10 to 15 out of the
Yeah.
raid. It's going to be huge. So no,
Yeah.
I'm excited for this. Set bonus seems fun. And the best part about I think the nicest part about this set bonus is it's actually good in both raid and mythic plus. So that like as a Mistweaver, whether either type of content you do or you want to focus on, the 2 and 4 set are going to be good in both of them.
That's
Um,
unusual, actually. Most of the time, and tank set bonuses have this too. There's a lot of the time where we get like a set bonus that's really good in Mythic Plus, but not so good in Raid. Very rarely
yeah.
the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, this is one of those. Yeah, I don't know if it's super rare, but definitely not a common. That yeah, we'll have a good set bonus in both Mythic Plus and in Raid. So
Yeah,
um, but cool.
we
I
have a
think that's all I have to say
little
on
bit.
Seppa.
Well, you want to talk about the upgrade system slash crafting changes?
Yeah, yeah, we have a short amount of time to go through that. So, maybe I'll give a quick overview. So there was an initial, just to sort of cut this off, if you read about the patch notes early and then don't come back to them. There was an initial post by Wowhead that talked about a massive nerf to crafting. Um, slight issue with the way they were data mining things. The initial, I think, understanding was that like crafted gear was going to cap at like 13 item level below mythic, people up in arms. They've since corrected that. It'll now just be a 3 item level difference, very similar to how it is now. So it's
The like right now your myth track ends at where crafted gear caps out, right? So it's
mhm,
like the same. Um, so the difference is next tier, the myth track is going to end 3 eye levels above your crafted stuff, which is
yeah.
like, it's pretty close to the same. It's close enough that you're not getting a huge amount of extra power from doing mythic, but you're getting a little bit, and it at least means that, like, right now, what's going on in Raid is we have sparks for everything.
Hmm.
So you can just craft everything with perfect stats, basically. So the only things you want from Raid are if you want an oddball stat distribution where it's like 70-30 on stats, which you can't do in crafted gear, or items with
Right.
special effects. So like trinkets, certain weapons, certain things like the Sarkareth cloak, and then the very high eye level gear off of the last two bosses that's eye level 450 or above.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so track wise, not a huge deal. The other change just to crafted gear in general is that they're changing some of the upgrade tracks, I'll say. So mythic or sorry, hero gains an additional upgrade. Um, I guess level, I guess is the way. Today it's 5. In 10.2 it'll be 6. Mythic also gains an additional upgrade level, goes from 3 to 4. So you have an additional sort of, we'll say, gap in eye level there to gain, which is, I guess, a good thing. Um, they also are changing crests. Crests now just drop. There's no longer you no longer need to gather fragments and then turn them into crests. Crests just drop, and they're a currency, not an item. So your bag space, rejoice, your agent bag gains what? That's four. Like four
I,
times two, you get
I
8
more.
spaces back.
I have more than that because I have stacks of aspect crests at this point. Just stacks and
That's
stacks
fair.
of things. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's gonna be nice. I'm probably gonna get back like 12 bag slots when I vendor all of
Yeah.
my crest fragments and stuff from this tier. Um, yeah,
Which is good. They're also capping the number of crests, so they're now going from, I think, they say in the post 90 will be the cap, which gives you 6 upgrades a week. That's down from 10 upgrades, which is what they launched with 10.1.
yeah,
So you get like 4 less upgrades, which again is all in service of like, again, most people, if you played the game a lot, you could have been capped out on gear by week 2, essentially.
yeah.
Um,
There were
for all intents and
specifically like
purposes.
this tier. What you had to do was you had to be very smart and min maxy about using your worm crests. So you'd max out both
Mhm.
your aspect crests and your worm crests. You would use all of your worm crests and then also use your aspect crests. You would turn like 70% of them into worm crests, and the remaining 30%,
Yeah.
since getting to the max upgrade level and there was no myth track, right? Max upgrade level,
So,
you only needed one aspect crest. So you actually got, instead of it being whatever, 10 upgrades worth of crests a week, you got more like 15, 16.
yeah.
And then in 2 weeks, you just have enough to upgrade everything.
Yeah, which is cool. Which is a good change. I think it slows it down slightly.
Yeah.
And then they're also changing some of the how you not how you acquire, but when you acquire certain crests. So they talked about this. It's not actually in the blue post, but they talked about this in one of the inventory interviews. I'm sorry, where if you do cap on out on say aspect quests, you do nothing but your 16s for the week. You get your all your aspect crests there, and you want to continue to do 16s, you can. What'll happen though is a lower level crest will drop for you. So if you're capped on aspects and you do something that would typically reward an aspect crest, it's now going to reward a worm crest or the lower level.
Yep.
So you can that way you don't have this weird thing that happened really at the start of this current season 2 where you were like doing plus 11s not because you needed the gear but just because you needed the like the crest
Yeah.
basically. Um,
The only thing I don't like about that is, again, like, it removes, there's a little bit of incentive early in the season to like just hop into 11s with people's alts
yeah,
and just like do them for crests. And that was kind of nice, but then at the same time, what it did end up devolving into is you would take 5 people that are like eye level 440 and you just
yeah,
go smash 11s, just completely crush them. and
Yeah.
get your worm crest. And that wasn't particularly fun. So like there's a trade-off here. I'm fine with where they landed. I think it does address like a pain point, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um and there are still like you still get bonus crests. Well, actually, are you going to? We don't actually know. Currently, you
I don't
get
know.
bonus fragments
Hmm.
for uh, helping someone get a key that increases their score. So if you're capped on score, you can do keys with people who are not. I mean, capped on score. If you're like only doing 20s and you've done all the 20s, right? You're
Yeah.
realistically not getting score unless you go into higher key levels, but then you can help other people get their 20s and get extra fragments. I would assume it's going to give you more crests, not past the
Hmm.
cap, but let you get the cap in fewer keys.
Yeah. No, that's I would yeah, I hopefully they keep that in there. We'll see though. Because they didn't really specifically mention that. And the other thing they talked about with crests is that you can now upgrade crests, basically trade lower level crests for high level crests, but it's going to be based on the item level of your character. So once you reach a specific item level, typically I think it's the item level that would make the lower crest obsolete. So they use the example of saying like once you reach 411 item level, you could take great Drake crests and upgrade them to Whelpling, or sorry, take their Whelpling quests and upgrade them to Drake quests, essentially. So once you reach sort of that threshold of where the Whelpling crest capped out, you could then take them and upgrade them into the next level of crest.
Yeah.
So again, I think another thing of saying like it makes it so like as you sort of level up, you might have a surplus of say like Drake crest or whatever. Maybe it's like in the current case Worm crest because you spend a lot of times in 11s and 12s. You can upgrade those to aspects once you get that higher item level or reach that higher item level area. So
Yeah.
which is again another nice change of like making a lot of the previous work you put into sort of climb the item level ladder, it doesn't go to waste with in terms of your crest. So
Yeah. There's
um
one of the other side effects of the track changes. So the extra upgrade level for hero, which will presumably cost aspect crest because currently the like max hero upgrade requires an aspect crest.
mhm.
Plus the existence of the myth track from day one means that you will actually also have a use for your aspect crests for actual upgrades on week one.
Yeah, yeah,
So you're gonna have, instead of it being one aspect crest per slot that you need, which is only like 13 crests in order to cap out the hero track, um, you're gonna need two, which is 26, which is a lot more. With the new rate, that is gonna be like 4 weeks to completely max it out with zero worm crests being upgraded into aspect crests. And then of course
right, yeah,
the myth items will be more. And again, when you get a myth item, like if you get a myth item in your shoulder slot, you don't need to spend aspect crest anymore. So like if you get a myth item and you have a hero item that's better statted, you can upgrade it for free, basically.
hmm
And so
yeah,
that all kind of works out nicely. One of the things here, no more, I guess flight stones are sticking around, so you still have the flight stone cost. Maybe that's what it is.
right,
Maybe it's flight stones for. Oh, it's definitely going to be flight stones for helping somebody finish their upgrade their score
yeah.
because that's what it is right now. I was thinking fragments were flight stones, and they're not.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, so it's a I think it's a lot of interesting changes, at least to like the crest system. The crafting system seems to be very similar. A slight item level difference, but honestly, I think minor in like the
Yeah,
overall grand scheme of things. But in general, you'll see the crest system, I think, is the largest change, which I think they're accomplishing maybe two main goals or a lot of two main pain points, which is like slowing down the upgrades that you get. So basically not being maxed like within, 2, 3 weeks. And then also not requiring you to do like lower level content or I guess as
yeah.
a side effect to that, making older crests essentially obsolete. Cause I think I literally now just delete like well playing and Drake crests because I have zero need for them
Yeah,
ever
I'm
on my
assuming they're gonna
mark.
let us vendor them for gold, and so I'm just gonna vendor them. Maybe you already can. I
I
don't
just
know, but
I just delete them. So
um, yeah, that's I think like the three biggest complaints about this upgrade system were bag space, um,
mhm.
and then actually, like you said, the rate at which we got upgrades. it's such a
Yep.
weird thing to complain about because it's complaining about being like getting too powerful too quickly, but it does have some like knock-on effects that are not great because the chase is part of the game, right? It's part of the
Right.
gameplay loop. It's hunting for items and getting items and stuff. And if you get them all and then have nothing left to go for, or if the items aren't worth seeking out because you can't upgrade them, right?
Yep.
Then you run into issues there. I think the myth track helps with that, but not being so quick to the point that like we're basically geared on week 3,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
which is where we were. We were like there are a couple people that did the week 2 thing, but it required maxing out both your worm and aspect crest, which is just a lot of keys.
Yeah.
So most of us were doing it week 3, and that's still very early.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it's super. Yeah. It was super, super fast, I'll say. So no, I mean it's nice that we'll see it slow down slightly.
Yeah,
So cool. But I think we are slightly over. I'm not gonna say well
slightly
over,
over.
but slightly over.
Yeah,
And we still have a ton of more stuff to talk about, I feel like next
yeah.
week.
We haven't even touched on the raid. We haven't touched on the new, any of the new world content, the new
The
dragon
Mythic
riding
Plus
stuff.
dungeon, the legendary, the
Yeah.
catalysts,
Oh my
like
god. All
there's a
right.
lot of stuff.
But yeah, we have a lot of stuff left to talk about. We're gonna talk about more of it last week, and some of the stuff we left off, like the catalyst, we left off intentionally because there's unknowns about it that hopefully get clarified in the next week, and then we can talk about it without having to go back and make corrections.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, that is gonna be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it and the other work that we do over at the Peak of Serenity, you can do that at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to come and shitpost about Mistweaver mana issues.
Yeah, which are non-existing at this point. So chill out, people.
Well, all right. I'm not going to tell people to go and Doom post because Doom posting sucks. Please don't do that. But I'm sure you've dealt with some of it over losing the 2 set.
It funnily enough, not yet, but I don't think
Okay.
people realize it. They're still too excited about. Well, I think it's twofold. It's number one, fun fact, just as we end the show, is if you had Manatee on your bars previously from the old talent, it didn't get removed and it would just be grayed out. So people were like, "Why can't I hit my Manatee button?"
Oh
So you had
no.
to drag the new spell over it. And then yeah, number
Yeah.
two, people are just like, "I don't know when to use this because I have too much mana already." And I'm like, "Yeah, just slam it every 10 seconds. You're fine, like for a
Yeah.
second or two." But yeah, no. Well, Doom posting will occur probably in another 2 or 3 weeks. So once people
Yeah.
realize,
Please don't. It's nobody enjoys doom posting. Everybody hates
that's
it,
true.
even the
That
people
is
doing
true.
it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.